We are live. Hello, welcome to How to Get Found in AI Search. I think this will be a fun workshop. We're going to take some time to learn the differences between AI search and traditional Google search. And then we're also going to give us some time to work on our website. We're going to be using a tool or like a framework called MAP. So working through our message, our authority, and our presence. So first, let me get started with sharing my screen. And let's see here. All right. So slideshow, please. And just double checking everybody can see it. We're going to go through MAP framework. First, you need to grab your handout. So we have a handout available, and let me put in the chat for you. This is going to give you all the pieces that we are going to talk about. And let's see. That way you can copy paste it into your browser. So you're going to want to grab that document. I'll give you a minute to do that. And then the thing is the replay. So if you want to catch the replays, it is available for subscribers. So to do that, just go to compassdigitalstrategies.com/newsletter, and you can sign up for that and you will automatically get that. So, all right, well, now I don't know what I'm doing. I guess I'm just clicking around. 1 second. Backwards. There we go. I was going to give you the newsletter URL in the caption. Yeah, that's interesting. I did that. Google is so weird when that happens. So I did share. Let's try it again. Let me do a different share on it. Editor. Maybe if I do commenter. So try that and see if that works. And hey, Desiree. I feel like Google just is so weird with that. And then there is a link in the comments for the newsletter so you can get the replay. So that way you can watch it on your own time or come back to anything that you might need. And then let me know if that worked, Desiree. Well, what the shit? Hang on, let's see here. What if I did... Oh, see, okay. Accept all, give access. Okay, so it did give me the request for access, so that's weird. It's supposed to just let you do it. Clearly something I need to work out and figure out. So you guys should have... Try it now. Yep, I just gave a bunch of accesses, so you should have it. Let me see if there's another notice. Anyone with the link? Yeah, it's set for that. It's so weird. So I see a couple different ones. Still no, still not working. Okay, let's go. How can I do this? It says anyone with the link. Okay. So weird. Let me try saving it as a Google Doc and then we'll get it figured out. Share. Anyone with the link? Done. Okay, let's try this link I'm going to give you. It's not going to create a copy on your drive, so you'll need to manually copy it so you can make any notes you want. But let's see if that gives you at least access so you can see it. Okay, that second wouldn't work then? All right. All right. Definitely gonna figure out a different way to do that for next time. What the crap? Okay. So, okay, good. Hey, Amy. All right, so you should have everything then. So we have, let's see, I gotta reshare my screen. Okay, so we'll catch the replay with the newsletter. And let's see, anything else for that? I think that is it. Okay, so the next piece that we're about is just give a general framework of what is different between AI search and traditional Google search. So there's a lot of stuff going around. And I want to set your mind at ease that it's not as scary as it sounds in terms of having to do all the things. It's just not there. Basically, what it boils down to is AI search is generally just a different algorithm. And so Google uses signals and things to serve up a specific link from where it finds different information out on the website from different websites, right? AI search, Perplexity, ChatGPT pulls information from those websites and puts it all together in a paragraph, synthesizes it together. It's kind of like how Google AI does it. So the difference is that it's just a different algorithm. It's using different signals, but similar signals because Google has already figured this out. So what they're doing is using a lot of them are using Google and Bing as sort of one of the indicators. So if somebody already shows up first in Google or Bing, it's a potential, like everything's not set in stone, right? So I'm just going to say this. I'm going to say this real quick. I walk around with a disclaimer over my head. Things are changing very, very fast. So as of right now, they are using different tools. So they're using Google Bing as part of it. They're also going out and finding different websites and looking at the websites for different information. So the signals are different. However, what does seem to be happening currently is that the AI search engines may be leaning a little bit more towards what I call digital street cred. And so the things that are said about you out and around the interwebs is something that they take a look at. However, that's not the only thing. It's still all the traditional Google search stuff that makes a difference. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Because if your website isn't getting found in Google or if it doesn't have the information, then there's nothing for anybody to pull to know that you solve the problems that you help your audience with. That's what we're going to cover today. All right. So it's going to be a map framework. So what I've called message, authority, and presence. And we're going to go into these three different sections. And then we're going to take a look at some things that you might be doing on your website. And then we're going to take some time to actually work on your website. And I want to be clear that it's possible that you won't get through everything, right? We only have 10, 15 minutes for each section. But what you can do is take a look at things and be noting some stuff down and then do this later on your own time as well. So a message, your content needs to be clear and direct so that AI tools can extract and cite information about you so that they know who you are, they know who you help, which this just boils down to don't put everything in like cryptic terms. A lot of the times what we end up doing on our websites and on our pages, sometimes we want to be really clever and put these really fantastic words on there, and that needs to be a little bit more direct in what people are searching for. Because if the words on your website do not match what people are actually searching, there's no way for the tools to know that your website is that answer. It's also a way to be able to structure your pages for easy scanning. This is the same with Google as it is with AI, making sure that your headline is kind of like an outline. You have your heading 1, heading 2. Things are a little bit more scannable because it reads it in the background. So some of that can help lay it out a little bit more clear for the AI search engines. And then the thin pages, they get skipped. So dense pages get cited. This is just a fancy way of saying the more context that there is, the easier it is for someone to pick you up. So the more words you have, there's more context. They know more what you're talking about, as opposed to like say a 300 word. So that's that. Next piece. Okay, so now what we're going to do is take a look specifically at a couple pages. And one of them is your service page. So we're going to have you take a look at your service page and think about, and sometimes it's really hard because we're really, really tied to what we've done or what we do or how we look at our website. But if we think about what people are typing in, does my service page actually talk about what they're searching for? So re-look with a fresh eye what is in your headline, what is in your paragraph, what is in your call to action, all of that kind of stuff. Make sure that it's very, very clear. I think, for example, I've been going back and forth on my page for I don't know how many years now. And just because I feel like there's always a better way to do it, but when I'm trying to put the call to action at the top, that's okay because it kind of sets that in stone for people when they're like looking through the page, but your call to action also needs to be at the bottom. And then let's take about 10 minutes for that. So you're just going to look at your service page. Let me give you a couple other questions here to take a look at. So some things that you want to take a look at are your headings in particular, and then how long they are, and then is it a wall of text? So if it's just all text and you're scrolling and you kind of get bored looking at it, that's probably a clear indicator that also AI is having a hard time with it. So we're going to set the timer for about 10 minutes. And again, this is more a subjective workshop, right? It's not going to be checklist type of stuff. We're kind of taking a look at it from a different angle, just making sure that the context of the message is there, the length is there. And so the first page is the service page, and in a few minutes, we'll go over a blog post specifically. All right, so I'm going to give you about 10 minutes here. 112, so 122. And if you want to drop your website, I'm happy to take a look at that in the next 10 minutes. If that sounds like something you would want to be brave about and share your website, we can take a look. Otherwise, let me know if you have any questions as we go through that. We need some like Jeopardy music or some waiting hall music type stuff. I'm going to find an example for you too. There was, my blog is outdated. Yeah, I get that. Isn't that funny how that works? Cobbler shoes, right? Then you'll have actually a lot of stuff that you can work on in the workshop area for the blog post next. So there you go. All right, I have an example I'm going to share. Let's see. I'm going to put it in the chat if it does paste. I'm not sure if it's going to paste. Oh, maybe not. Okay, so here's an example of how to, maybe this is put it in better perspective too. So there's a lot of business owners want to know, how can I sound professional and not salesy in my website copy? And a lot of copywriters might write something like a post, and they might put something like the following in it. Oh, it's still doing it where it's too long. And they might say something like this. So if you want to sound professional, you have to be careful with your words. It is important to talk to people in a nice way so they don't think that you're just trying to sell them something. There are many ways to do this correctly, and we'll talk about them below. So that is a sort of roundabout way to talk about the idea of how to sound professional and not salesy in website copy. So the example of what could work is, I'll put this in two different things in the chat because it doesn't want to do the whole thing. A more direct way for AI search is to say to stop sounding like a salesperson. Stop using bragging words like best or amazing. Instead, use facts to show why your idea is good. Don't tell people what to do by saying buy this now. Instead, ask them a helpful question like, would you like to see how this works? So it's basically telling you to be more explicit, at least in certain portions, because there is a sense of, if you're too direct, you don't have enough oomph or enough words on the page. So you do have to kind of pull it out in different ways sometimes. But to answer the question, to put it in an actual paragraph is a better way to state that. Got about 4 more minutes for the service page. Does anybody see anything on their page that they want to call out that they're thinking about re-looking at another time, or something you especially like about your service page that's going well? Amy says, I need more website copy. I was trying to keep it simple. Yes. Isn't that funny, for especially for people who are more direct and succinct? And I like a lot of brevity. I joke about being brevity Barb. I think that's where you get to take the chance of like answering the side questions that people have. So if you think about AI search and people really want to hone in on the question and then they have another question after that, you could add that as like some more copy inside of there. Desiree, my entire site needs an overhaul, and it's one of my goals to rebuild it, but specifically the local map listing page, which is one of the most important things my agency focuses on. Yep. That's a great place to start because that's what the focus is. Yep. Patchwork. That's what my first 5 years was like. You're welcome, Amy. Amy has an amazing site. She does website design. Actually, if you guys want to drop in what you do, that'd be fine. Amy does website design and does amazing websites. Give it a couple more minutes and then we'll hop into taking time to look at our blog post and we'll talk a little bit about keywords. You're welcome. Website design, SEO, Google Business Profile Management, corporate communication coach for women leaders, Amy Green Smith. Yes, Amy and Gabby. Well, it's actually Desiree. I'll do an email for you both and connect you two. All right, let's move on to the next one. We're going to look at a blog post now around a client question. So go through, and if you have a blog post, we're going to take a look at the questions that are there. So some of the things to look at when you're looking at your blog post are the questions in a how matter? Are they in an opinion matter? There's different ways that you can write them, but essentially they need to answer the question that people are having. So the more specific you can get, the better. But at the same time, you want to think about, okay, well, what are some other things that they might be asking about? So a lot of the times we get really tied into what we do and what we think people are asking, but sometimes that might not be the actual words that they're using. So let's take the next 10 minutes for you to take a look at one of the blog posts. And what I recommend is going through Google and typing in what you think your blog post should show up as, like what somebody's typing, and see what actually comes up. And then compare the difference and see what happens. And then you're going to think about, okay, well, how do I match those two? So kind of along the same lines of the service page, does everything match in context? So would it make sense that the question is getting answered? And then is enough context with that topic that any search engine, any person landing on it would know exactly what the answer is? So I'll give you about 10 minutes to take some time to look at a blog post. And then we'll go into our next sections. This could be also a good time to find any new ideas if you're not sure. Maybe looking at some competitors for some ideas of what they're writing about. If you do use AI tools or you use Claude or ChatGPT to get this information, totally fine. I don't have any prompts for you today, but also take it with a grain of salt. These tools have ideas based off of previous ideas. They don't have access to keyword volume. They're guessing when they say that. So far, as of today, remember I got my splat, that might change. But as of right now, they don't really know, except if something's common to say, that's what they're going to say. So here's a great example. Someone was doing Google ads and they used a keyword because ChatGPT said it would be a great one to target based off of what they did. And it wasn't wrong, but the kicker was there was zero search volume for that phrase. So they were spending time and energy based off of a phrase that was going to get them zero traffic. So that's something to keep in mind, is to make sure, like, yes, we want to answer the questions, but also if there's nobody answering it, why write it? So you have to think about it from that perspective on the business side. If you're looking for a goal of website visibility, maybe it's not worth writing about. Sometimes I write things, though, for clients, so that way I have something to refer them to. That's another method of writing blog posts. So there could be different reasons that you're writing it, but if it's for search visibility, you want to make sure people are actually looking for it. or that they have an interest in it. And Desiree says, my number one problem with writing blogs is that I have been in graduate school for way too long. I need to learn how to stop writing like I'm a student. Oh, that's interesting. How is that? I guess I don't know the difference between I haven't been in college for a hot minute. So I'm curious, how is it, like, more probably editorial or like essay based versus something else? Mm, what is SEO or blog topic? The information is much more simple than my academic writing style. Yeah. Um, And that's a pretty common question too. So it's hard to be like, okay, well, how can you do it differently? I think that's the thing that my mind goes to next. What is SEO, but how can it be different? Maybe it's just one of those things that you create because it needs to be created so that you can use it in your content. It could be a content creation type of deal. I've done that with some stuff. I don't necessarily have keywords on some of my blog posts. It's just that I think that it's a good topic and I wanted to use it in my other channels. I have about 5 more minutes, and if you have any questions as you're going through. Hey, Barbara, maybe a question you mentioned before. How do I know what keywords are for my audience? That is a great question, Lisa. So you start with whatever's in your head first. Usually, what I tell people to do is jot down every single thing that's in their head in a Google Sheet, just so that it's in a list. And thinking about what you do or what you solve, what questions do they have when they're looking for what you solve. So, like, for me with SEO and AI SEO, it might be how to write a blog post, or it might be how to structure a blog post, for example. And so I would do a keyword on that phrase. So a keyword can be anywhere between one and an abnormal number, right? But in traditional search, it's between like 1 and 20, maybe at the most. With AI search, they're getting more specific. So you really can't target a quote keyword in the traditional sense with AI search. But what happens is, when that sentence goes in there, like they're having a problem and they are typing it in, the AI tools are parsing that out. And so it's looking for keywords to search on to solve the problem. So you're kind of doing the same thing as you were with Google anyway. And you can, if you ever gone into Perplexity, you can actually see that happening. It's kind of funny. So what you do is write down all the keywords, and then you take the ones that you think, and then go over to Google and type those in and see who else is coming up, and look at their content and look at their blogs and see what they're typing in. I also do some typing in Reddit. So would blog post be a keyword? No, so a blog post is actually just a page on your website. So a keyword is the content inside of the blog post. So a blog post is different from a page. And oddly enough, they're both pages on your website, right? But a service page, you have your home page usually. You usually have your service page, which is your money page. What do you sell? That's your service page. And then you have your content page. Then you probably have your about page. And then there's a thing called a blog. And It's sometimes people call it something different. I don't even know where blog came from. Maybe Desiree can remind me, but sorry, I meant the word blog post. Oh, would blog post be a keyword? Um, sort of. What do you do? What's your industry? Okay, what's the what's a question you get asked a lot? I'm curious about what business and wellness coaching is too, because the two don't, in my head, I'm like, they're two different things. You have business coaching and you have wellness coaching. I should have maybe made this like a interacted somehow with Zoom so you guys could talk back and forth. Blog came from the words weblog. Thank you. A weblog. That's interesting because it's not, is it a log? It's not even, boy, that's funny. I had never heard of that. So if you're in wellness and business, like, yeah. So let's say, let's go with wellness coaching because I'm thinking of a health coach, and maybe it's like, how do I not feel like shit in the morning? They're not going to say that, but that's what they're thinking. So what would they type into Google? So maybe it's something like, how more energy in my morning, like those types of things. That would be the keywords that you would be using. And keywords can be a phrase. It doesn't have to just be one word. All right, we got another minute, so we'll let you wrap up. Yep, you're welcome. I do have blog posts too on my website, of course, with all this stuff too. I'll send you, Lisa. I think I have your email somewhere, so I'll send you a direct link to that to give you some more context around keywords too, and just like how to search and find them. All right, so we're gonna move on to authority. So here's where people are saying it's a little bit different. It's the same but different, right? So basically, authority is how the web and how visitors on your website perceive you. So you're welcome. So it's in the old, well, Google traditional, it was EAT was a good way to say it. It was an acronym. It's EEAT: expertise, experience, authority, and trust. But really, it's just more about authority. I think you could like plug it all into authority. So basically, how does your website get perceived by the tools? Are you being mentioned on other websites? Are you being mentioned in articles? Are you getting reviews in Google Business Profile? Are you on the socials? So they're taking a look at all of those things and how are people, quote, talking about you on your website, and how does your website convey what you know? And some of those things are things like your about page, just making sure that you have who you are, who you help, your credentials, links to LinkedIn, podcast mentions, and press. That's one way to do it. Another way is your author bios. So a lot of times your blog post will have a template, and at the bottom, sometimes it's just a check on and off thing, but at the bottom it'll have your bio, and it'll say who you are. It's kind of like a editorial bio, right? And it talks about and just says, okay, the person who wrote this is credible, and it has all the information in there. And then you want to get your business mentioned on third-party places. The best way to do that is podcast appearances, in my opinion, because they at this point they can't be manipulated, because when you go on the show, then they put their show notes on their website, and then there's usually a link back to your website. Directories and things like that, some of them are really kind of crap directories, and they're still kind of good to do if you have the time, but some of the directories don't hold any credibility when it comes to like Google or the AI tools. So a lot of the websites in the past have been built so that that website can make money, and sometimes that meant just putting some really crap information such as directories, because they can scrape the entire website. And I think those are getting like aggregate sites and directory sites are getting kind of quote called out a little bit. And they're not holding as much weight or as much authority as real websites, real people putting information out there. And then, of course, reviews. We all know Google business reviews are a very big thing. And I'm sure that AI uses other things like Facebook and Reddit. I know it uses Reddit because it does say like you do it and you want to know if somebody's credible or not. Like if I was looking for physical therapy, I was looking for somebody in my city that had good reviews. And so they went out and looked not only on Google Business Profile, but also Reddit. So they're looking for not necessarily star reviews, but people talking about the business. That's also another way to like review somebody. So go through authority and a couple different workshop items. So the first one is we're going to take about 10 minutes and you're going to review your about page and think about, is there anything on there that potentially you could add, you could change, something that would improve the authority of the about piece. And then the second one in the same realm is your author bios to your blog post. If you have time to actually do the work right now, that's great. And then if not, then you can just make note of what you want to change. So maybe the author bio needs updated, or maybe you can make it a little bit stronger with some sort of client win or something like that. All right, so I'll give you about 10 minutes for that. Oh, that makes sense, Desiree. You know what I was thinking was when you said weblog, I was thinking the back end weblogs. You know how they have the dates and times and all that crapola. I wasn't thinking like a log, like a diary. So that makes sense now. Oh, that's a good idea. Adding links, Desiree has super helpful to add links to other bios as well. So she added her Women 360 directory link to her about page. And then also to her LinkedIn, plus added more info. Yeah, that's usually where I put, I think, a lot of my stuff. I can't remember now. Sometimes I put it in the footer, but the about is like everything about you or your business, depending on how you decide to portray that, or maybe even a little bit of both. Headshots because my hair's Yeah, I cannot even see you with purple hair. That's it. Yeah, that might need updating. I think you just mentioned me this week. I don't know what that means. Oh, that's too funny. I wonder if I did. So sometimes too, if you get notices, they take a while too to show up. Because I know you're in something somewhere. Oh, yeah, it's one of those blog posts, the redesigned blog posts, I think. So to get third-party mentions, there's easy ways and there's not so easy ways, and a lot of times they're not so easy. Guesting is good and easy. There's also the ability to do like submissions to journalist requests. So there's a couple of them. One is called HARO, HARO. It's help a reporter out. And then there's one called Source of Sources. It's SOS. So the guy who created or started HARO, very, very beginning, I think he ended up selling it or something like that. He now does SOS, Source of Sources. And basically they send you an email and journalists are looking for different information and people to contribute. So when you can answer one of those, you have a chance of getting shown up in the article. So that's one way that's maybe simpler logistics wise, because you can just wait for it and come through. Um, Maybe working with somebody complimentary in your industry to do a listicle or do a complimentary blog post. Maybe they want to talk about what you do and you can offer them a quote. That's actually what I'm doing for a lot of my clients right now is to set the content apart a little bit is it's pretty cool actually. If like, for example, I was doing one for blog posts for copywriters. And so we asked a bunch of copywriters for their specific take on how they get blog post ideas for themselves and for their clients. So that was a pretty meaty article. There was a lot in there. And so I mentioned like 6 different people in there. So sometimes it might be just offering up the idea to somebody in a complementary industry, or you can offer to write for them. That takes a little more time. There's some other, it's also called backlinking or link building. So if you did that, you could also consider that option. Yep. The other one is Reddit's harder. It's funny because like that can also be manipulated, right? So they're very careful about when you answer something using your own name or using a link, you already have to kind of be okay in the atmosphere there. But that's another one is if you can get somebody to mention you and review you or talk about you on Reddit or another social platform, that's something as well. Trying to think of some other ones that I've had. Industry magazines. So one time I got quoted in an industry magazine or an industry search engine journal just because I wrote the blog post. So they picked it up somehow and then mentioned it in their website. So sometimes it's just about writing about the proper content, like maybe not proper content, but writing about something that somebody else is going to want to see. And it was kind of interesting. It was about how to read Google Analytics in 5 minutes. And I personally have a hard time with that concept. But technically, you can set it up so you can quick read it in 5 minutes. And that was what was picked up. So it was just something super easy, one little tactic that somebody can do. It wasn't a whole on topic to talk about. It was just like one piece. So that might be something to consider too, as far as topics. All right, couple more minutes. Oh, you're already on third-party mentions. So we'll move into that. Give that one about 5 minutes to think about. So in the third-party mentions, like I was saying, the other thing is to think about review requests. A lot of the times we forget to pick those up or ask people. And it is a little bit hard to ask for that sometimes, but if we can give them the ask and say, hey, would you mind giving me a review over at such and such? If you'd like, here's some questions to think about. So give them some ideas so that it's not so hard to start. Some clients I've even offered to write the words for them so that they can modify it however they want. So it gives them a very easier starting point because I've known them so well. So sometimes that can work. And then as far as directory listing, disclaimer, update, basically if you just go search for your name and click around and see, that's another way to do it. There's still a lot of them out there. I think the reviews are probably more helpful as far as time is concerned and energy wise to spend time on versus the directory listings, but those can help. Actually, I don't know if Desiree's still on here, but she had a case scenario where she went through and cleaned up everybody's, a client's directory listings and citations, and she saw improvement from that. So I don't know if you're still on here and want to share about that, Desiree. That would be cool. So we'll give it about 5 more minutes so you can do that. Yeah, the citations, yeah. You were saying that the persons that you were working on, they didn't have them all. Yeah. Sometimes it's just cleanup work that we need to do too, that we've seen out there, or I will say too, the third party mentioned, there are certain networks out there sometimes. The wedding industry has one where there's a lady who has a whole like membership, and she has a connection with journalists, and she's able to take those connections and put them to her membership. So there might be some for your industry specifically that you could tap into and see if there's a way to get into them more. The NAP has to match exactly across the internet. If it doesn't, that can drag your rankings down. Yeah, the name, address, phone number. So that's a big deal with citation. So if you've changed your number, or like Amy, you've changed your website address, that would make a difference. If there's any differences throughout everywhere. It's a credibility thing, right? Like if you have like one phone number here and one phone number there, it looks messy and or doesn't, because of all the spam out there, right? People have, that's what happens. It makes it easier for them to know that you are credible if it's all matching. Okay, we'll give it about 3 more minutes. Domain age plays a role too. Yep. So a new domain will have less authority and impact in the ranking. That's very true. Even though they say that's not true. We know better. We know better. I mean, if you think about it, it makes sense, right? If there's a new domain, they have to kind of prove themselves, basically. And also, there's that one case study where somebody was like, they did a whole bunch of blog posts at one time. They did it very superficially with AI, and so they pushed hundreds and hundreds of blog posts up, and it did start ranking and got a lot of traffic. But then it was because it was manipulated that Google didn't like it and then served them a manual action. So you can't always just take the easy way out. All right, let's move into presence, the third part of the MAP framework. So the other piece of the pie is the presence and how that looks, and how incomplete things can impact how the tools see you. So one of those is the Google Business Profile. So when someone asks who the best service is near me, Google Business Profile data is one of the first places that AI tools will look. The inconsistency, like we were talking about with NAP, the name, address, phone number, or descriptions or branding, like if you have your name is abbreviated and it's not normally maybe across, that could have an impact. And then the images matter more than you think as well. So the images are another source of context that AI search tools can pull from, and even Google. So there's things like your image alt text on your photo. It can have, it's called image alt text, image alternative text. And basically, it's the text behind the image and it describes the image. And it's actually one of the most overlooked areas that people have on their website. So most of the time when we put an image on our website, we download it from Canva or a camera or something like that. And then we upload it with just whatever the name is. So it might look like file name 2345.jpg. And the kicker with that is the file name also is a potential for a keyword. So if you know you're targeting topic A for this blog, you could call it topica.jpg to kind of help Google see that. It's not necessarily a signal to say that it's any good, any better or not, but it is another way that they can identify the context together with the page. And then the image alt text is used for screen readers mostly to describe the image for people who need that written out or that said out loud. So it's another way to get your information in front of the AI search tools and in front of Google. So that's another way that you can do that as well. So for this portion, we are going to take a look at, in particular, your Google Business Profile. And then the other action is to optimize images on a key page. So taking a look at the alt text, file names, and compression. So we're going to take about 10 minutes to take a look at both of those things or make notes of things that you want to update. And in particular with the Google Business Profile, the biggest things that you can check are your name, which probably should just be your name, right? Or your description and also your category. Those are the big ones to check. The category, you can have probably a million of them, but you really just need one or two. The primary one is the one that matters the most. And then the description, you don't want to like stuff it and make it like SEO-y, but make sure that you're using some of the same keywords that you would want people to find you for. And because Google Business Profile mostly works off of proximity as well. But when you have that information, it's possible that people can find it from different areas. And then also the updates. So if you do have a fully updated profile and you have all the information in there, the other thing you can do is add some photos, add an update, add some services. There's usually a services area, that kind of thing. One of the newer ones that people had on there too is your social links. So if you haven't touched your Google Business Profile for some time, you'll want to add your social links on that profile. And Desiree says 750 characters. So about 115 to 150 words, depending on word length, maximum of 5 keywords. There you go for your Google Business Profile description. And then your images, I would pick either like your service page, your home page, or a blog page, and just take a look at your images and see if they have image alt text or if the file name needs to be changed. Usually when you do, let's see, what's the easiest way to do this? You could do a Chrome download and have that information. But if you just do a right mouse click and do inspect, it should highlight right away down at the bottom. And then you can see if it has the image name and or the alt text. Or you can go into the back of your website. And when you upload the image, it usually offers that time for you to add it. And so when you go back into the back end of your website, wherever all your images are, you should be able to see what the file name and the image alt text is. So take a look at those and see if you can do those. And then images for Google Business Profile, Desiree has offered 720 by 720. Oh, that's a good point too. No email or phone number on the images and no links in the update description. Good point. All right, so we'll give you about 10 minutes for that. I talked for about 4 of those, so you'll get about 6 minutes. Yep, that's true. Do all we can do to avoid being suspended or unverified. Because you know what? I am unverified right now because I moved. And they wanted a video to ensure that I was real, and I sent it, and they still haven't done anything about it. And I just haven't made it a priority, which I should, right, for my business, but I haven't. So there's that. Awesome. The video's approved too. Do they have to approve videos on Google Business Profile? I guess I didn't realize that. Interesting. I love that, to never. Yes, because that's what chaps my ass about it too. Like sometimes when people have reviews and they don't show up, so you go submit it to Google and they're just like, "I'm sorry, you just can't have it." And they don't tell you why they don't put it up. They just didn't like it. It did something with their filter. So, oh no, that's not bad. No, that's not good. That's a long time. I'm sure Desiree feels good about her Google Business Profile. Amy, do you feel good about yours? Is there anything in there that you're going to update? Oh, there you go. See? Some Google Business Profile love. Good job. Fantastic. Good job, Desiree. All right. We are going to finish up. That's it. Just like that. So thank you for coming to the workshop and spending time on your website. So just as a reminder, if you want to get the replay, you can subscribe to the newsletter if you're not already. So that's compassdigitalstrategies.com/newsletter. And then you can also find me on Instagram, which I am at compassdigitalstrategies.com. And if you have any follow-up questions as you go through this and revisit, feel free to reach out and say hi. So thank you for coming. Have a great day.